The ancient world is mysterious, but scientists don't care. I still managed to explain it secretly though. Not everyone in the world has a lot of buildings, which put absolutely everyone into a stupor. From giant statues and stone complexes that could not be built, people before columns that are too perfect to be true with you. Top hype in this. Let me show you these and others. Mysterious buildings that no one knows can explain in ancient times was created. There are many beautiful statues, and in many of them, it is quite possible to believe that they could. There are people, but there are also those who shock and stun, like, for example, a statue. Buddha's in the Chinese city of Lesan Place. The location of the statue is Mount Shan. The statue was carved right into the rock. The height of the statue is 71 m high. The head alone is almost 15 m wide. Statues of about 30 m are truly the grandiose construction of which is like. It has been considered for more than 1,000 years by scientists. It is believed that the work on the creation of the statue, it took place during the Tang Empire in the century of our era. The Chinese, of course, always were advanced, but even they create such a thing would be extremely difficult, or it is almost impossible. Besides, nearby, with the statue on the rocks, you can see many other stone images, which make the big picture only more. Was it possible to create a more complex one? This is without machinery. Scientists, they say it took 90 years, but it seems even for such a period to create this is impossible. Some local, they believe that this statue is like others grandiose buildings of the past created advanced civilizations, and someone thinks that people were helped by someone from outer space. And what do you think? Music. You okay? The Buddha statue is still possible. Explain at least some logic, at least this. And not just, but there are plenty of others. Objects on the planet that don't exist at all. One of them can be explained. Located in Nanmadol. Have you ever heard of this place? Most likely not, because this is an archipelago, which is located on the outskirts, literally in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It would seem in such remote and paradisiacal corners are not. There should be nothing interesting except beaches and clear water, but on Nanmadol, you can find mysterious stone buildings. Stone palaces were discovered here. Temples, tombs, and residential buildings that it was built between the X and 15 centuries of our era. The question arises, who would need to build something so grandiose somewhere in distant lands? Scientists believe that on Nanmadol lived the local elite and members. High society may have been here, the residents of the local government. Even so, but there is one very strange moment on the archipelago is practically absent. Fresh water sources. Is such a place suitable for founding here something like the capital or central government residences? As for me, it would be stupid, but there is another version, according to which the Nanmadol complex was a cult, and the religious significance is already more. It seems to be true, but it's still just the version of the complex is badly damaged, so it is difficult to understand what exactly he served for. In fact, scientists still do not solve this. A riddle. Since we were talking about cults and religion, why not look into Ethiopia? There is a big city of Lalibela here. The account is not interested in anything at all except their churches, but they, in turn, do not. Just interesting will leave you at a dead end. Even the fact of modern scientists is that these churches were carved out of stone and volcanic breeds. Each of the 13 churches, it is unique, inimitable, and differs in its style. Some buildings are located in pits and surrounded by rocks. Others are carved right into the rocks and cliffs. According to the calculations of scientists, the whole thing was built in the X11 centuries of our era and on. It took only 25 years to build from scratch, and it is in Ethiopia, an African country. Ancient residents who have never been famous, advanced knowledge and skills, and not. They could boast of unique guns. Labor. How is this possible? Because even to recreate such churches in the modern world, it wouldn't be easy. Not really. They understand how ancient people were able to create such skillful and incredible churches with the help of primitive tools of everything, for a quarter of a century. But the answer is local residents. They believe that there was no help from the almighty forces. According to legend, over the creation of churches, both ordinary workers and Angels let down. On Earth legend says that it is. The angels asked Lalibela of that time, the local ruler, to build churches and, therefore, over the creation of these monuments. The architectures worked as usual. Workers and angels in Africa are much more mysterious buildings than you can imagine because people, mostly they only know about Egyptian pyramids now you have learned about. There are more mysterious Ethiopian churches. One big Zimbabwe mystery: how? It is not difficult to guess whether he is in modern Zimbabwe is ancient South African city. The construction of the city began in the 9th century. Our era and its peak was in the X century. Is it a coincidence that during this period there were, carved out of stone, are those incredible churches? In Ethiopia, the main feature of the ruins, it consists in their architectural characteristics of all buildings in a large Zimbabwe were built from the same stone monoliths of regular shape, which just fit on top of each other. A friend without using any bonding materials. At the same time, the city, it has been preserved very well. It was abandoned in 15th century and it stood unchanged yet 100 years until they stumbled upon it. Europeans eventually big Zimbabwe. They began to investigate, but archaeologists did not were able to understand who exactly built these. The buildings seemed like it couldn't be someone from the local tribes, and then archaeologists have learned a local legend, according to which the city built mysterious people in local legends. This city was described as supernatural. They could fly and move stones with the power of thought. They lived some time together with the locals tribes in a new city and then somewhere disappeared. But who exactly was it, and were there these supernatural people are actually, in fact, someone believes that these were aliens or representatives unknown advanced civilization, who then left to help others, to the peoples in the promotion of grandiose buildings. Considering the grandeur of many mysterious buildings around the world, I would be completely surprised if they really are built by aliens or some kind of a superpowered race of people. Maybe they over. This has been worked on. This is the Temple of Jupiter in Lebanon. It is located in an ancient city. Baalbek already destroyed the temple. Looks like as typical ancient ruins on such you can stumble across in many countries. Eurasia, but the Temple of Jupiter is not so simple. How it may seem exactly here. You can find one of the craziest megalithic blocks on the planet. It is called the Southern Stone of Baalbek, or the stone of a pregnant woman. Is his age about 2,000 years, and the mass is more than 1,000 tons. It is 20 m long, 4 in width and height, and pay attention to it. Very smooth and smooth. Yes, it was battered time, but in ancient times it looked like perfect. But why is only a part visible? A stone, because it fell and pick it up. Now it is not possible even using modern powerful technology to do this. It is unrealistic for this to need several dozen powerful cranes that they simply won't fit in this area. The question arises if even modern technology cannot cope with this stone. How ancient people created it 2,000 years ago, how they processed it and made it so smooth, and how are they? He was moved, because this is just one of elements of Baalbek and the temple complex. On the temple grounds are full of others megaliths, processed columns, and others extremely weighty objects, including there is also a trilithon 3 megalith retaining walls that weigh 800 tons each. Scientists cannot fully understand who it was he who created these buildings, and most importantly, why would anyone need it after all? 2,000 years ago, Lebanon was completely under the power of the Roman Empire and was not close to its center. Why erect something so monumental somewhere on out of the empire? It is possible that the truth in a friend, and in fact it's a handiwork. Representatives of the highly developed civilizations even talk about it. Some scientists, in their opinion, the structure in only giants could create Baalbeki, which died out not so long ago. And some researchers are sure that this is a direct proof that to our planet the aliens arrived, because they are quite could create such grandiose buildings from the stone. Is impressive not only for its scale, individual buildings, but also their decoration and processing of a giant stone. Have you seen it yet? Well, write in the comments, what do you think? prank is either a real find as well. If you were interested, please like and subscribe.